Ultimately, I'm always right.
It's actually a very good rule of thumb. He's always right, ultimately. All right, he's a human being. He makes mistakes, sure. But on the big things, I do believe, I agree with him. He's always right. Now, we're finally hearing from Donald Trump on this whole Joe Biden document Corvette fiasco. He was on the great one, Mark Levin Show. And there's a lot here, a lot of wisdom, a lot of presidential insight that I think you only get after you've been president. Here we go.
If you look at all of the different legislation that's been passed over the years, I mean, we're supposed to be dealing with them and talking to them. We were doing that. All of a sudden, they raid Mar-a-Lago, and we had it secure. Look, Mar-a-Lago, you know Mar-a-Lago. It's a very secure place to start off with. But the Presidential Records Act, if you take a look at the Presidential Records Act, that's there to protect the president and also the country. And I fall under that. Plus, I have the right, as you know, to declassify documents, and the vice president doesn't have that right, has no rights to do that. He comes under the Federal Records Act. That's a very, very strict act, whereas the Presidential Records Act is very much different. And we were living up to that, and then all of a sudden we got raided, I guess for publicity reasons, but I don't think that publicity worked out very well for them. And now they're starting to find all of these highly classified, not just classified, highly classified documents. And if you look at the picture of him in the Corvette and take a look behind it in the garage, they got papers strewn all over the place. It's a mess of all the papers. I've never seen anything like it.
I love it. He cuts through everything. And it's true about the Presidential Records Act and what he can do as opposed to federal employees. And in many ways, Joe Biden, as an ex-vice president, as he was at the time, was kind of like a federal employee. There's more.
They just got announced that Hunter Biden is the actual owner of this house, Hunter Biden. And you know what his reputation is and the problems he's had over the years. So it's a disgraceful situation. They appointed a Trump-hating prosecutor, hates to a level like you wouldn't believe. His wife, his sister-in-law, all of his friends, all the big Trump haters. And this guy is, really an atrocious Trump hater. And the man they appointed as the special, I call it prosecutor in my case, the special counsel in the other case, is a much different type of person.
He's right, again. And that guy with the purple cape, really, it's true. His wife made a movie about Barack Obama. The family gave money to Democrats, not to be trusted. All right, now Joe Biden had those documents in his garage as opposed to the documents that President Trump had at Mar-a-Lago, a world of difference.
You know, Mar-a-Lago is built like a fort.
It is.
Mar-a-Lago was supposed to be Marjorie Merriweather-Pust, E.F. Hutton built it. And they built it really as the Southern White House. It was gifted to Washington. It was actually built because of its security. It's got high walls all over. It was built because of the security. And on top of that, we have the Secret Service here. So, we had a very well-guarded situation, whereas you look at where they're finding these documents in an office with no security or in a garage with absolutely no security in a house that wasn't even owned by him, that was owned by Hunter. And I think you're going to find a lot more because in Delaware, I understand they have a tremendous stash of documents. And I'm sure when you look at that, you're going to find documents that you didn't even believe.
It is wild. Hunter Biden owning that house as he checked on a form. This confirms suspicions. Hunter Biden has been complaining to his family for years that he has to foot all the bills in a text to his daughter. I hope you all can do what I did and pay for everything this entire family for 30 years. It's really hard, but don't worry. Unlike Pop, I won't make you give me half your salary. There's a lot there. This is one weird family. More for Donald Trump on Mark Levin.
I landed before 11 o'clock. We were in Mar-a-Lago shortly thereafter. I was still president of the United States, I believe, until 12 o'clock. And I was in there. That's a big difference, too. And we were allowed to take this. Many presidents took things with them. Clinton took. And in fact, he won a case called the Sox case. And they were taking it out in socks. But Clinton took and Nixon took. They actually paid Nixon, I think, $18 million for the things he took. He sued them and they ended up paying. And I think that's really how the Presidential Records Act came about. But if you take a look at Bush and Bush, they all took. But what I take, it's a little bit different. And what I was allowed to take. And again, the president has the right to declassify all sorts of rights that a vice president doesn't have.
It's true. A president has so many more perks and so much more in the way of authority, the discretion to say what's personal, what's not personal, what's presidential, what's classified, what's not classified. He has that authority. And oh, by the way, the perks, yes, a president gets Secret Service protection for the rest of their lives. Obama and Trump, yeah. And now Joe Biden, but when he left office in 2017, Joe only had the Secret Service with him for 6 months. That was it. He was walking around like an ordinary citizen, 2017, 18, 19. All right. Now, what about China?
Biggest problem, Mark, is it's China. China gave $55 million to the University of Pennsylvania, where I went. I went to the Wharton School of Finance at Penn. And, I'm disappointed in them as a school. But China was paying through that money. Biden got $1 million a year for a think tank, if you can believe it. So they paid Biden $1 million a year out of the money that China gave. Now, if China wants to see those documents, I'm sure they would say, come on, let me show you.
I believe that. Remember, he was so tight with President Xi. This guy, he understands it all. And there is precedent. Important precedent. One more.
These are Obama administration documents. So clearly the National Archives did not get all the documents, quote unquote, when they are with Joe Biden. So the National Archives lied.
They did, and Biden took them, and maybe Obama didn't even know that, but Biden possibly didn't. But Biden took them, and as vice president, he doesn't have the rights to do this. And what he did is it's a very serious problem. It's a very serious problem. But it's not a problem for me. I'm allowed to do that. And you look at the law. The Sox case that I told you about, that was a case that allowed Clinton to take things that he took. He took things, and they ended up in litigation, and Clinton won, meaning he was allowed. It's a very famous case, the Sox case, and he was allowed to take things as president, and I am too. And they made such a big deal out of it. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, and he was acting so sanctimonious, by the way, to use an interesting term. But Biden, if you take a look at it, what he did, and then all of a sudden this stuff just starts coming out. And I have a feeling a lot more is going to come out over the next coming months in terms of him.
I share that sense, don't you? All right. However, doesn't Joe Biden have an excuse? I've been hearing it all week long, right? They found these documents and they called the National Archives right away. I mean, immediately.
They immediately call the archives, turn them over to the archives.
The lawyers did the right thing, and they immediately turned them over to the archives.
When President Biden's team found these documents in the two locations,
President Biden's team, they turned over these documents without being asked. They turned them over immediately.
Immediately. The media, the politicians, all on the same set of talking points. Immediately. 5 years later. That's not immediate. That's 5 years later. Left office in 2017. This stuff found 2022, 2023. 6 years later. 6 years later. Now, consider this. The National Archives was hassling President Trump about documents and in touch with the administration before President Trump even left office. So you see those boxes, January 20th, 2021. This is moving day at the White House. I wouldn't think that's a big deal. But some bureaucrat did. Take a look at this. This is the archivist of the United States. I can remember watching the Trumps leaving the White House and saying to myself, what the hell's in the box? So this guy makes a federal case out of it. That began a whole process of trying to determine whether any records had not been turned over to the archives. It's fascinating, right? This guy's getting on the phone, making a big deal out of it, and Trump is still president. Now, that's immediate. It's a lot quicker than 6 years, isn't it? I don't think they were calculating, but this all works to Donald Trump's advantage. All right, we got to hear the clip of the week, right? One more time, Joe Biden with this perfect airtight excuse. as to where these documents are. They're safe and sound, right?
Classified material next to your Corvette? What were you thinking?
Let me, I'm going to get a chance to speak on all this, God willing, soon. But as I said earlier this week, people, and by the way, my Corvette's in a locked garage, okay? So it's not like you're sitting out in the street.
So
But anyway,
was in a locked garage.
Yes, as well as my Corvette.
My Corvette, really proud of it. And in a locked garage. What can go wrong? First of all, Joe Biden doesn't live in paradise. He has a nice house, but guess what? Gangbangers have been known to drive by and shoot up the place. Yes, shots fired outside Biden's Delaware home. It's a few years ago, but it does happen. And Delaware itself, Joe's been showing off that Corvette. You know what Delaware has? A lot of car thieves. Yes, an unusually high number of car thefts take place in Wilmington, Delaware. Sometimes people's garages are broken into. Look at this national survey, actually. These statistics, everything in purple is Delaware. Everything is green in the rest of America. Auto thefts compared to the rest of the country, sky high in Delaware. And remember, Hunter Biden is involved in all of this, right? He actually owns the house, probably has access to the Corvette. And remember, he did have a problem. I hope he's kicked it, but this is a real problem. Do you want your landlord, he owned the house, do you want your landlord to be like this?
I went one time for 13 days without sleeping and smoking crack and drinking vodka exclusively throughout that entire time.
So that's the guy who had access to secret classified documents in his own garage, in his own library inside the house. Joe Biden has a very, very serious problem on his hands. Yes, they're trying to make this go away. It's not going to. He will not be the nominee. Trust me, guaranteed. I'll be right back.